Nightwork, a Dave Brandstetter mystery. Author Joseph Hansen. Publisher Open Road Integrated Media. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 15. It was a lonely place, a long way from anywhere. Miles before they reached it, they saw the glow it made above the dark, rolling hills of the endless valley. When they did reach it, Dave drove on past. It was a black-topped acre or two, where the boxy hulks of tractor-trailers' rigs loomed up against the lights of a filling station, a cinder-block motel, a glaring glass-walled eatery. On the roof of the eatery, red neon spelled, "Good Buddy." Plumes of smoke rose from the tail-plated exhaust pipes of some of the rigs. The rain laid a shine on the trucks, the paving, the jackets of men climbing down out of cabs, moving among fuel pumps, heading for or coming from the cafe. But the shine did nothing to change the bleakness of the place. "There her van," Melville said. "She's here." In the rear seat, the camera burred and clicked. Cecil had spent the evening hunched at Dave's desk, studying the instruction manual. He had fitted the camera with a night telephoto lens. At the time he bought the cameras, Dave had let the clerk sell him every sort of gadget and attachment. The motor traveled the film in the camera. Cecil clicked the shutter again. "Do you see her?" he said. "No, but she there." Melville twisted on the seat to peer back through the rain. "You want a license number?" Dave stretched across him, opened the glove compartment, took out pad and pen, and dropped them in Melville's lap. The boy held the pad close to his eyes and traced the numbers large and slow. "Look it up," he said. "I find it belonged to somebody dead, most likely." Dave squinted past the batting wiper blades. "You picked the right night," he said, "but won't the weather keep her indoors? Won't she make her contacts in the cafe?" "She worked in the dark." Melville stowed pad and pen in the glove compartment. "She don't trust but a few." The little door clapped shut feebly. "Where are we going?" "To find a side road," Dave said. "Where would a side road go out here?" Cecil said. "Maybe no place," Dave said, "but we sure as hell are not going to drive into that truck stop and announce ourselves. Now, aren't we?" "She don't know this car," Melville said. "Ain't that why we brought this car?" "I figure she know Ossie's car. Maybe she knows Cecil's van. She don't know this car." "She knows you," Dave said. A truck lumbered out of the rest stop and onto the road. Its headlight beams glared in Dave's rearview mirror. He winced and moved the Valiant along faster, but very soon the diesel finished clashing its gears and roared up behind them. Dave looked for a wide, flat shoulder he could pull off onto. The headlights didn't show one. The diesel gave a blast of its air horn. Dave pulled onto a narrow, tilted shoulder and felt the rear wheels slide. The truck howled past, red lights glaring off its towering rear. The red lights dimmed and disappeared in the darkness and the rain. The Valiant stalled. It coughed when Dave tried to start it. But at last, it started. He shifted into drive, and the rear wheels spun, whining. "Uh-oh," Melville said, and got out onto the rain. Cecil got out the back door. "Yuck," he said. "Mud." Dave stretched across the seat and looked out. He had turned off the headlights. Cecil and Melville were almost invisible, a tall shape, a bulky shape in the blackness. Melville lifted one foot, then the other. They came away with a sucking sound. "What do we do now, Coach?" "Should have brought Amanda's car," Cecil said. "Too light to get stuck." He didn't have a hat. He pulled his jacket up over his head. "Too small," Dave said. It was an Alfa Romeo, two-seater. No room for his knees. Certainly no room for Cecil's knees. "There are three of us, remember?" Cecil moved. "That's why we're all right." His voice came from further off. "Two of us, too," he grunted. "Push." "Not you." Dave got out of the car quickly and lunged for the rear, skidding in the mud, almost falling. The two leaned their weight against the trunk. Dave caught Cecil's arm. "You drive. You're in no condition for hard labor." "Oh, listen, I'm okay," Cecil said. "You want to go back to the hospital?" Dave said. Cecil sighed and, with slumped shoulders, went and got into the car. Behind the steering wheel, the whirling rear tires plastered Dave and Melville with mud. But they got the old car onto the paving, and They found that side road. The trouble with it was that as it climbed the hills, he veered away from the lights of the truck stop. Slithering and sliding, they backtracked. "This is the closest point," Dave said. "Stop here." "It quit raining," Melville said. "That's nice." Snagging themselves in barbed wire fences, sometimes up to their ankles in mud, they slogged across farmland uphill toward the glow in the sky. Cecil's legs were longest, and he led camera case, equipment case, binocular case, swinging from the shoulder straps, banging his lean hips, breathing hard, muscles aching from the bad footing. They topped a ridge. Below lay the truck stop, and Dave unsnapped the binocular case. The view was good. A stout woman in a dark raincoat, a dark slouch hat shadowing her face, stood beside the high tractor of an 18-wheeler, out near the edge of the shiny blacktop where the light from the building was poor. A hulky man held a clear plastic umbrella over her. Though the rain had stopped, in his other arm he cradled a stack of big brown envelopes wrapped in clear plastic. The long door of the truck cab opened, and the driver climbed down in a cowboy hat and dirty leather jacket. The woman passed him one of the envelopes. The binoculars were 7x50s, with night lenses. Dave could see the driver's beard stubble, the pores under the woman's thick makeup. He handed Melville the glasses. "Is that the Duchess?" Where Melville had trouble finding in the lenses that brought her close a figure that a moment before had been tiny. "Oh, yeah, that's her. See the big ugly with that stupid umbrella? He always with her." "Probably the one who beat Angela Myers," Dave said. From the darkness, Cecil said, "Damn," to himself. The camera chirred and snapped again and again. "Wish she'd take off that hat. Can't get her face. Now she's going into another truck if she just once look up." "Don't worry about that," Melville said. "Focus on the driver, man. Get pictures of what he going to do." Melville nudged Dave's arm with the glasses. "Watch." And Dave watched. The man in the cowboy hat peeled the saran wrap off the envelope, dropped the wrap into an oily rain puddle, and his cowboy-booted feet tore open the flap of the envelope. He peered inside for a moment, reached inside, drew out thick white plastic sheets with raised red lettering. He reached out, slammed the door of the cab, hiked himself up, and flattened one of the sheets against the door. "Acme Waste Disposal," Melville said. "Mama say you told her there ain't no Dr. Ford Kretschmer?" "Not in the phone book. No place." "Well, ain't no Acme Waste Disposal either. Peerless Sanitation going to drive out of here tonight, too. Another one called Certified. Names you might believe if you didn't know the Duchess only made them up." "Look at that," Cecil kept snapping the camera shutter. "Now it's a pirate ship." Dave focused on the cowboy driver. He was slapping skull and crossbone warning placards on the trailer of his truck. "Hazardous cargo." Dave lowered the glasses and frowned at Melville. "I don't follow you. Camouflage yourself as exactly what you are." "That's only half of it," Melville said. "He's still got a lot of goodies in that envelope. You want to see how the last part worked? We'll have to follow him." "We could try," Dave said. It was a grimy corner of L.A. at 2:45 in the morning. The wet streets were empty. A freeway arched past its trees and shrubs, and unearthly green in the blaze of lights. Beyond the freeway, the glass towers of downtown glowed tall against the dark sky. Down here, there was a lot of shadow. The streets edged between old buildings, half of them blinded by plywood or rusty, corrugated sheet iron. Dave held the Valiant back 2 blocks behind the giant semi, which bulked ahead of them, almost as wide as the street. Red braking lights flared now on its rear. Its air brakes brought it to a hissing, clattering halt outside a brick wall where metal signs read Millic's Corp. Dave swung down a side street, then into an alley, to park between walls where graffiti was dense and intricate as lace. Rain-soaked trash overflowed dented dumpsters and squished under the tires. The eyes of cats shone in the headlight beams and vanished. Dave switched off lights and engine. "That's a high wall," he said, and wearily pushed the door handle and climbed out. He left the alley and went back up the side street. The truck was inching through open gates into the Millic's yard, which was now brightly lighted. Dave studied the street, then returned to the car and leaned at Cecil's window. "May I have the keys, please?" Cecil pulled the keys out of the dashboard and handed them to him. Their little jingle was loud in the silence. Dave unlocked the trunk of the Valiant. The light was poor. He shone the sharp, thin little beam of a pin light into the trunk. A tire iron lay on the frayed carpet. He closed fingers around it and brought it out and slammed down the lid of the trunk. He pocketed the keys and started deeper into the alley. "Come on," he said, and heard them open car doors. "Scramble out. Come hurrying after him." He played the little light along dank walls. The windows were high up, barred with iron and sunken doorways. Trash had accumulated against doors, sheeted in metal, padlocked. He touched one or two of these padlocks, studied the slits of Yale locks, went on. In the next block, he found the kind of door he wanted. It was wood. The hasp that held its padlock was rusty and hung a little loose off its screws. He wedged the tire iron under it, pushed the screws, came out, and rattled in the litter underfoot. He didn't worry with the spring locks. He jammed the tire iron between door and frame and leaned his weight on it. Wood cracked and splintered. The tire iron slipped, and Dave fell against the door. It gave, and he pitched into blackness. He fell, bruising elbows and knees on gritty concrete. The pin light skipped away. He dug out his cigarette lighter and flicked up a flame. The tube of the pin light glittered. Melville picked it up and handed it back to him. Cecil helped Dave to his feet. "Stairs," Dave said. They found a corner room on the third floor, empty, dusty, plaster fallen from the ceiling, where the view was good of the Millicks' yard. The window glass was dirty, and the lock on the window was corroded. Melville hammered at it with the tire iron. "Don't break the glass," Dave said. "Hurry," Cecil said. "They're loading now." He had his face pressed against the next window. He rubbed at the grime on it with a hand and shifted anxiously from foot to foot. They made small mounts of frustration while the camera on its neck strap jogged against his chest. "Let me try," and Dave said, and took the tire iron. He tapped it in under the window lock and pried. With a squawk, the lock came loose and flew in the air. Dave dropped the tire iron and pushed up the window sash. Cold, wet air came in. Cecil bumped against him and leaned far out the window. He began snapping the camera shutter again. Dave got the binoculars from the case on his hip. Steel drums were stacked along a loading dock. Not many of them were new. A few had a little shine left to their finish. Red, yellow, black. Most were mottled, pitted, streaked colors no one could name. Wearing gauntlets and black rubber aprons, 3 men, 2 dockers, and the driver rolled the drums on dollies from the lighted platform into the dark trailer of the truck. A few drums bore faded company stickers, warning stickers. Not many. "This is a sleaze operation," Melville said. "They don't care about nothing. Place dad went and did everything up neat. Labeled what the chemicals were in the barrels. All that. Tech right. They just as evil, but they make it look nice." The loading took 40 minutes. Then the driver shut down the door at the back of the truck, shoved the lock bolts to, and shed gloves and apron. A squat, paunchy docker dug under his apron and brought out folded papers. The driver unfolded these, read the top one. Taking his time, he walked to a crate beside a door that gaped wide on a dim, empty storeroom, picked up his cowboy hat and put it on, laid the papers on the crate and signed them. The squat man took the papers back, separated the copies, handed a copy to the driver, folded the others, and tucked them back under his apron. The other docker, a gaunt Latino with rounded shoulders, came out of the warehouse carrying styrofoam cups. "Oh, no," Cecil groaned and pulled himself back into the empty office. "I think I'm going to drink coffee now." He peered at the elaborate black watch that made his wrist look fragile. "Don't we ever get to sleep?" Dave heard his exhaustion. "Let's go," he said. "Wait," Melville took the binoculars. "It's not all over yet." He leaned out the window. "He ain't got time for coffee. Wherever he go and dump that stuff, it's a long way from here. He got to do it before daylight." Dave touched Cecil's drawn face and returned to the window. The driver jumped down from the loading dock. He carried papers and coffee to the truck cab and climbed in. The big engine roared into life. Smoke poured out the high exhaust pipe. The brakes hissed. The gears ground. Jerkily snorting, the truck nosed out the gates and lurched on big tires into the street. The space was narrow, so it took backing and filling. But at last, the entire length of the rig was once more in the streets, headed back the way it had come. The yard gate swung to. A moment later, the yard went dark. The truck came on toward the building where Dave, Cecil, and Melville waited. It stopped almost under their window. The driver climbed down, peeled the white magnetic signs off the doors, the skull and crossbone placards from the trailer. "See," Melville whispered. "Now he nobody again." The man climbed back into the cab. The angle from up here was steep, and Dave could see the man's hands sliding the signs back into the Duchess's brown envelope. He folded the posters and pushed them into the envelope, too. He stuffed it in the manifest given him by the Millick's docker and drew out another set, green ones. These he stowed above his head, where Dave couldn't see. He dropped the brown envelope behind the seat and reached for the gear stick. "And now he got cargo manifest he can show," Melville said, "in case the CHP stop him, or a roadblock or something." The brakes hissed. The big rig growled slowly off. "Prepared by the Duchess," Dave said. "Anything," Melville said. "Stuffed toy animals." "Paper hats for your end-of-the-world party," Cecil said, and began laughing and couldn't seem to stop. Dave lifted the cases off him and draped them on himself. Cecil staggered with laughter. Dave took his arm and, by the gleam of the penlight, steered him toward the hall. "You're hysterical. Let's get you home to bed." Melville followed them, plaster crunching under his shoes. "Don't you want to see him dump it?" "Not tonight, thanks," Dave's voice echoed in the stairway. "Not unless it's up Torpedo Canyon, where Paul Myers went. That I want to see." "Why'd you say so?" Melville said. "Torpedo Canyon, where Dad went that night, I stowed away with him." Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.